You know, in the
Never
wrestling
know.
world, you can retire and unretire so
That's
many
true,
times.
that's true.
I can't really, I can't say 100%, but 99% of me says, yes, this is probably the last time.
99%.
The tragic fate of Bill Goldberg is a story of unmatched glory meeting unavoidable decline. At 59 years old, Goldberg stepped into the ring one last time at State Farm Arena in Atlanta, facing Gunther in a match that turned out to be one of the longest and most painful of his entire career. The truth behind that night, and what led to this kind of ending for a legend like Goldberg, is something most fans never heard. And once you hear the full story, you will understand why people are still talking about it till today. Let's find out. The dark side of Goldberg's career. Everyone remembers how the winning streak started, and the way the number kept growing almost every single week felt unreal. WCW kept announcing that Goldberg had reached 100 wins, then 120, then 150, and before long, the famous number 173 became part of wrestling history. Was the number completely accurate? Not exactly, and many records later suggested the real total stayed somewhere between 120 and 150 matches. But did the exact number really matter to the crowd at the time? Not at all, because the only thing most people cared about was the zero in the loss column. Goldberg stayed undefeated for 461 days, and during that time the audience became fully invested in watching one dominant force walk through opponent after opponent, like nothing could stop the momentum. Signs started appearing in arenas showing the streak count, and every time the number went up, excitement inside the building grew louder. And nobody could have guessed that a short match on a regular episode would turn into one of the most talked about runs in wrestling history. Interest kept building week after week, and the reaction from the crowd stayed strong enough to carry the character from simple matches to championship level. That kind of rise does not happen by accident. Careful planning played a part, but real belief from the audience mattered just as much. Without that belief, would the streak have lasted that long? Probably not, because wrestling stories only work when the crowd wants to see what happens next. Then came the moment that changed everything, and many fans still talk about that night like something important was taken away too soon. Kevin Nash ended the streak at Starrcade on December 27, 1998, after Scott Hall used a taser to shock Goldberg before the match finished. The idea behind the decision sounded logical at the time, because WCW wanted the NWO to look powerful again and planned for Goldberg to chase revenge afterward. But looking back now, did that decision really help anyone? A lot of people believe the answer is no. Ending a streak that big should have created an even bigger story, yet the follow-up never reached the same level. Only 8 days later, another moment made things worse: the famous finger poke of doom. On the same night, more than 600,000 viewers changed the channel from Nitro to Monday Night Raw after hearing that Mankind was about to win the WWF Championship. Losing that many viewers in one night showed how badly the situation had been handled. Instead of building something stronger after the streak ended, the company lost momentum. Many fans later said the first loss felt like a wasted opportunity, because the result did not lead to a great rivalry, a huge comeback, or a long-term story that paid off. When a streak lasts that long, should the ending not feel unforgettable? That question still comes up whenever the topic is discussed, and the answer usually sounds the same. The ending should have meant more. As time went on, every weakness started getting more attention, and that is something that often happens when success comes too fast. Critics talked about the limited moveset, the short matches, and the aggressive style that sometimes looked out of control. The most serious moment came during the match with Bret Hart, when a kick to the head led to a concussion that played a part in ending Hart's career. Goldberg later admitted the mistake and said the accident happened a long time ago, but still caused regret. That moment stayed in people's minds, and every other mistake after that seemed bigger than it might have been for someone else. Another incident happened during a match with The Undertaker, when a move went wrong after Goldberg had already suffered a concussion earlier in the match. Situations like that made critics even louder. Was the pressure part of the problem? Many people believe that constant pressure makes every error look worse, especially when the spotlight never moves away. When a career starts with such a huge push, every step afterward gets watched more closely. A small mistake that might be ignored for another wrestler suddenly becomes a headline. Goldberg later explained that being human means caring about what people think, but only to a certain level. Negative comments never fully disappear, and learning how to turn that negativity into motivation becomes part of the job. He described criticism as fuel, something that pushes harder work and stronger effort every day. That way of thinking also became something he tried to teach younger athletes and even his own son. Being hard on yourself can help improvement, but being too hard can also become a problem. How does someone know when to push harder and when to step back for a moment? That balance is not easy, especially after living through a career where every success felt huge and every mistake felt just as big. Looking back at the streak, the loss, the criticism, and the pressure, one thing becomes clear. The run created a legend, but the weight of that legend never really went away. Even today, conversations about Goldberg often come back to the same question. What could have happened if the streak had ended differently, or if the follow-up had been handled better? Nobody can change the past now, but the story still feels unfinished in a strange way. And that lingering feeling is exactly why people keep coming back to it even years later, trying to understand the moments that never fully made sense. What makes this part even heavier is what happened after the spotlight faded. Stay with me till the very end, because the personal tragedies and the life beyond the ring reveal a side of the story most people never truly heard. Personal tragedies and life beyond the ring. Right before the farewell match on July 12, 2025, news came in that the father-in-law had passed away at the age of 88. Imagine getting ready for one of the biggest moments of a career and then suddenly facing a loss inside the family at the same time. How does anyone stay focused in a situation like that? Wanda spoke about the father with so much warmth that the words almost painted a picture of the kind of man that was lost. Wanda described the father as fun, witty, caring, adventurous, and sweet, and said that a special kind of magic followed that man everywhere. Some people just have that presence that makes every room feel lighter. And that was exactly how the father was remembered. The timing made everything even heavier, because the 61st wedding anniversary would have happened on July 14th, only 2 days after the retirement match. Think about that for a second. 61 years of marriage, a farewell match, and a funeral all falling in the same week. How could anyone go through something like that without feeling shaken? Wanda even said that superhero movies were never needed while growing up, because a real-life hero lived right at home. That kind of statement shows how deep the love ran, and hearing something like that makes the loss feel even bigger. As if emotional weight was not already enough, nature also decided to test strength in ways that felt almost unreal. Winter storms in Texas hit the ranch near San Antonio and turned daily life into a struggle that lasted more than a week. 8 straight days passed without running water, and that alone would be hard for any family. But the situation became even more serious because nearly 50 animals depended on care every single day. How does anyone keep a ranch running without water, without power, and without heat? During the blackout, 3 calves and 2 sheep were born, and the timing could not have been worse. Electricity was out for millions of customers across Texas, and freezing temperatures made everything harder. Snow had to be boiled just to give the animals something to drink. Bottles had to be used to feed newborn animals because leaving them alone was not an option. That kind of moment shows a different side of strength, not the kind seen in a ring or on television, but the kind that shows up when nobody is watching. Then came the floods in the hill country around July 4th, and the damage left behind was so bad that words did not come easily when trying to explain it. How many times can one person get hit with one challenge after another before feeling worn out? That question stayed in the air because the truth was clear. Even someone known for toughness still feels pressure when life keeps pushing. During this period, honesty started to show more than usual. A simple statement explained everything when the admission came that no one is immune to being human. That sentence might sound small, but the meaning behind it carries weight. Fame does not remove pain. Success does not block loss. Being known by millions does not stop real life from happening. Sometimes people forget that and expect strength all the time. But reality does not work that way. There was also a strong desire to make sure that the audience stayed entertained and happy, even while dealing with personal struggles. That kind of mindset raises another question. How does someone keep performing while carrying so much inside at the same time? The answer seemed to come from a lesson that had been passed down to the next generation. Teaching the sun gauge how to turn pain into fuel became an important part of the story during that time. The idea sounded simple on the surface, but the meaning behind it was powerful. Hardship can either slow someone down or push someone forward, and the choice makes all the difference. Turning struggle into motivation became the message that was repeated again and again. Athletes understand this better than most people because every career comes with injuries, losses, and moments of doubt. Learning how to use pain instead of running from pain can change everything. Think about how many people face problems and feel stuck because the problems feel too heavy. Now, think about what happens when those same problems become the reason to keep moving. That shift in thinking can change a whole life. One of the most emotional moments came during the farewell, when something happened that felt like a full circle moment. Former Atlanta Falcons teammates stepped into the wrestling ring to stand in support, and the feeling was described as something close to poetic justice. Looking up and seeing people who once shared sweat, injuries, wins, and losses on the football field created a feeling that words could barely explain. Those were the same men who went through tough practices, long games, and hard seasons together. For a few minutes, the roles almost felt reversed. All those years spent wanting to be like those football players suddenly turned into a moment where those same players wanted to stand beside the man they once played with. How often does life give a moment like that? Not very often. For those 5 minutes, happiness felt real, pride felt real, and the connection between past and present felt complete. Moments like that remind everyone that behind the fame, behind the matches, and behind the spotlight, real life never pauses. There is loss, struggle, family, and those small victories that end up meaning more than any championship ever could. And that is exactly why you need to stay with me till the very end, because what happened next leads us straight into Goldberg's final battle. And this part of the story hits harder than anything that came before. Goldberg's final battle. When the final match started getting closer, a lot of hidden struggles were already happening behind the scenes. And honestly, hearing everything that Goldberg went through makes the whole farewell feel even heavier. Years of wrestling had already taken a serious toll on the body, and this was not just normal pain that comes and goes after a match. This was damage that had been building for decades. The left knee was already in bad shape, and that alone changed everything because the spear depended on speed and impact. Without full strength in the knee, how could the move even look the same? On top of that, the shoulder was not reliable either, and that created another problem. because the jackhammer needed full power in the arms and shoulders to lift an opponent safely. What made the situation even more shocking was the fact that the rotator cuff tear did not happen recently. The injury actually happened years earlier during the first match back with Brock Lesnar, and nobody knew about it at the time. That injury stayed hidden, and for 5 whole years the arm could barely lift properly. Just imagine living with that kind of damage and still stepping into a wrestling ring. Anyone hearing that would probably ask the same thing. Why keep going through all that pain when walking away would be easier? But the answer seemed to come from the way Goldberg looked at the final match. This was not just another performance. This was the last chapter, and the last chapter had to happen no matter what condition the body was in. Training for the retirement match made everything even harder. Preparation should have been about getting stronger, but instead, preparation turned into a fight just to stay in one piece. Over 3 months of training, several injuries happened again and again. Running became almost impossible because every time the knee took pressure, pain came right back. When running could not work anymore, the routine had to change. Sprint bikes replaced road work. Cardio sessions had to be modified. Every exercise had to be adjusted just to avoid making the knee worse. That kind of preparation makes anyone wonder how much risk was really involved. Most people preparing for retirement would slow down, rest more, and try to avoid injury. So why push harder when the body was already breaking down? The answer seemed simple in a way. This was not just retirement. This was a final moment that had to feel real. And feeling real meant going through the same grind that built the career in the first place. Then the match with Gunther finally happened, and even during the match, things did not go smoothly. Somewhere in the middle of the 15-minute fight, the hand broke. The strange part was that the break was not even noticed right away. Only after the match ended did the swelling start, showing how serious the damage really was. The hand became so swollen that the veins disappeared completely, and that alone shows how bad the injury must have been. Recovery did not start with pain going away. Recovery started with something as small as veins showing again. That moment, when the veins finally became visible, turned into the first sign that healing had started. Hearing that kind of detail makes the whole situation feel more real. How many people would even continue a match after something like that without realizing the hand was broken? And how many people would still call the moment worth it afterward? Even with all the physical problems, the decision to continue never changed. There were also personal losses happening around the same time, and that could have been a reason to postpone everything. Many people expected that the retirement match would be delayed. Anyone in that situation would probably think the same thing. Why not wait until the body feels better? Why not wait until life feels more stable? But the decision stayed the same. The match would happen as planned. The commitment had already been made, and backing out did not feel like an option. The retirement match was seen as something that could not be moved, almost like a promise that had to be kept no matter what. When the final moment came at State Farm Arena, the ending did not happen with a big victory. The match ended with Gunther locking in a sleeper hold and putting Goldberg to sleep right there in the ring. For some people, that might sound like a bad way to end a career, but the reaction from Goldberg told a different story. The loss did not feel like failure. The loss felt like closure. Ending the career in Atlanta, the adopted hometown, meant more than winning or losing. That location carried history, memories, and a connection that made the ending feel complete. Sometimes the result does not matter as much as the moment itself. Looking at everything together, the farewell match was not just about one fight. The farewell match carried years of injuries, months of painful training, a broken hand in the middle of the ring, personal struggles outside the ring, and still a decision to finish the journey without changing the plan. That kind of ending does not happen often. And maybe that is why the moment felt so heavy. Not because everything went perfectly, but because nothing went perfectly and the match still happened anyway. And in a strange way, that might be the real reason the ending meant so much. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.